Good evening, welcome to the Big Story. I'm Gile.
I'm Gretchen Hall.
And I'm Sean Yao.
Tonight's big stories. Allies of former President Rodrigo Duterte pose a legal challenge to the controversial General Appropriations Act of 2025, or the budget, questioning its legality all the way to the Supreme Court.
Lawmakers slam agriculture and trade officials over a holdup in the declaration of a food security emergency meant to temper the unabated increase in rice prices.
And Maharlika Investment Corporation says it is open to acquiring China State Grid Corporation's shares in the national grid operator. Maharlika President Rafael Consing also defends the 1.5-year delay in its first investment.
Straight on to the big story we go, and a petition has been filed before the Supreme Court challenging the legality of the 2025 General Appropriations Act, otherwise known as the 2025 National Budget.
One lawmaker called the move a desperate political gambit in favor of Vice President Sara Duterte.
On the other hand, the palace says it is too soon to comment on the petition. Marian Enriquez with the big story tonight.
Former Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez and Davao Congressman Isidro Ungab filed a petition before the Supreme Court to declare as unconstitutional the 6.325 trillion peso national budget, or the General Appropriations Act of 2025. The petition stemmed from several alleged violations, including the supposed blank items in the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the budget. Rodriguez called the 2025 budget illegal and criminal, citing his former boss, President Bongbong Marcos, and both chambers of Congress as respondents.
Ang trabaho lamang ng Bicameral Conference Committee is to reconcile, if any, yung mga conflicting figure. Wala na. Hindi sila pwedeng magdagdag, hindi sila pwedeng magbawas, hindi sila pwedeng makialam.
Yesterday, Acting House Appropriations Committee Chairperson Stella Kimbo explained that the blanks in the budget were mere typographical errors, which were corrected by authorized technical staff from the House and Senate.
Paano naging typographical ang blanco? Ang tanong, sino nagpuno ng mga patlang? Wala nga amin. Why? Because that is criminal.
Aside from the Supreme Court petition, Rodriguez said they are also studying the filing of a criminal complaint for falsification of legislative documents. Meantime, House Appropriations Committee Vice Chairperson Zia Alonto Adyong continues to defend the national budget, which he says went through the proper process and approval.
The Senate and the House have meticulously discussed provisions and line items in the budget.
Deputy Majority Leader Paulo Ortega again called the petition a political move to restore the office of the Vice President's deleted funds. House Speaker Martin Romualdez has yet to comment on the petition, which he said he will still review. For his part, Senate President Jesus Escudero welcomed the complaint.
Hindi ito dapat ikabahala. Ito'y bahagi ng ating demokrasya.
For the palace, it is just too soon to comment on the petition. For News 5, I'm Marian Enriquez. We are One News.
A lot of controversy over that GAA budget. Actually, looking into the Constitution, the Bicameral Conference Committee is not provided for in the Constitution.
Yes.
It is actually created by the rules of the House of Representatives, aimed to reconcile differences between the reports of the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
So, dito pumapasok yung konting confusion as to what can happen when the report reaches the BICAM. Are they allowed to change things? But a while ago, we were taking a look at the Constitution, and it seems to say in Article 6, Section 26, that no bill passed by either house shall become a law unless it has passed 3 readings on separate days, and printed copies on its final form have been distributed to its members. And it says here that it cannot be changed. So wait, hanapin ko lang yung actual ano na yun, ano. Section 26, it cannot be changed in both houses. So there might be something there.
Yeah, in short,
A lot
yung
of the
pag na-ratify na, di ba? Hindi na pwede siyang i-end.
Well, but
And
as we know, a lot of the things in the comes down to how you interpret the law in the Philippines,
correct,
right?
that's
That
correct.
could be argued either way.
But that's the thing. I think what Gretchen is pointing out is it's not a law, it's a rule.
Ito,
And it's a house rule.
No amendment thereto shall be allowed, and the vote thereon shall be taken immediately thereafter. and the yeas and nays entered in the journal. So may
So
ganun.
hence the argument that it should go back to plenary.
Plenary,
yeah,
But again, is it just minor amendments? We'll never know. And hence, that's why there's been growing calls
Yes.
that the BICAM meetings be made transparent.
But let's just
when it
put some
comes to
context
BICAM deliberations
into
be
why,
made
yeah,
open to the public,
Yes,
so we
which-
can all see.
which has been proposed to no avail many, many times, right? But just to put context into why we're talking about this, it's because we heard the explanation of Appropriations Committee Acting Chairman, Stella Kimbo. No, after evading the media, she explained in a statement yesterday and today, former Senate President Tito Soto tweeted. Sabi niya ay,
That's not allowed.
it's not allowed. Actually, ang sinabi niya is review your rules.
Ayun nga, no? Because I think it's stemming from the lack of trust
Yeah.
over what happens over at the BICAM. Some even propose having it live stream to be
Yeah,
able
that's
to,
why.
yeah, but
Even
to
the
no
Makabayan
avail.
Bloc has been asking for it, that it be open to the public, live stream in real time, because we are the stakeholders after all, right? The budget affects everyone, and
It's our
should
money
therefore
that
be
goes
open to everyone.
Apart from the blanks, the other questions of its constitutionality lie in the budget allocation for education, the educational sector as a whole, or is it DepEd itself? And also the PhilHealth, the zero subsidy from government.
Yeah.
I guess those are questions, but as government says, it is too early to comment on it. I guess they need to get down to
Well,
the detail of that complaint.
Until the issue goes away, apparently. That's when they'll comment.
Meanwhile, talking about waiting, a food security emergency may be declared in the next 2 days. That is what the Trade Department assured the House of Representatives Committee that is looking into the issue of runaway prices. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza has the story.
It's been weeks since the House of Representatives started its investigation into the issue of skyrocketing prices of rice and other agricultural products. The so-called Quinta panel is on top of the inquiry, composed of the Committees on Trade and Industry, Agriculture and Food, Ways and Means, Social Services, and Food Security. By now, lawmakers can no longer hide their dismay by what they believe are the agri-leadership's lack of urgency. The promised food security emergency declaration has not come to pass.
Guys naman, nakailang hearing na tayo. Nakalimang quinta hearing na tayo. Kailangan nyo nang i-declare na meron tayong emergency because clearly merong extraordinary price levels.
According to the Department of Agriculture, they have yet to formally receive the recommendation of the National Price Coordinating Council. Upon receipt, they will be needing 2 days more to review it. For the Department of Trade and Industry, it's now only a matter of making sure they use the right terms in the declaration.
Ano ang deadline nyo dyan?
Sino ayaw pumirma?
Hindi naman sa ayaw. I think it's more of the wording of the formula for declaring extraordinary price to support the declaration.
Sir, in 2 days, lalabas na yan?
Kaya na siguro. Kaya na, Mr. Chair.
O in 48 hours, may lalabas na.
As soon as a food security emergency is declared, the National Food Authority can finally release its aging rice stock to the market at 29 pesos per kilo. The NFA's current inventory of aging rice is at around 300,000 sacks, with another 500,000 sacks of regulator stock that can be sold at a subsidized price of 38 pesos per kilo. Once the NFA sells its reserve, its warehouses will be ready in time for the harvest season.
Talking about runaway food prices, we were talking about the very...
Yes, we have, if you notice guys, we have some
It is the
round
eve of
fruit.
it is the eve of Chinese New Year after all. So that's, if you're noticing the extra things on our desk, that's why they're there. There's hopia, there's
What is this?
there's
Those are
mandarin
cherries.
oranges, and those are cherries. Those are not necessarily Chinese, but
Okay, but this is the reason why we have a food emergency. And this is like, I'm not actually making light, but these fruits were purchased by Regina at the grocery store earlier today. And the price is per piece, okay? And this fruit is 110
Wow.
pesos. One
Each.
piece.
Each.
And this one is 113 because it's bigger.
yeah, each. And he was
You can get a
surprised.
full meal.
It's,
Right.
These
equivalent
two are
to a
223 pesos.
Baka naman
Yes.
imported yan.
Imported
They are.
naman talaga.
But that's
They are
besides
imported
the point,
from
right?
China.
I mean, we import fruits,
But-
we import rice.
Yes, but they shouldn't cost that much each.
shouldn't.
But also, I was telling her, and she was shocked to find out as well. I buy mangoes a lot. My 2 kids love mangoes. These on mangoes, I think they're from Zambales or somewhere else. or almost 100 pesos each na rin. So if I buy a pack
For
of
one
5,
mango.
yes.
Oh, that's surprising.
Yes. I will bring
And
you
these are-
another day a bag of mangoes
Yes.
of 5 pieces. That would be 500.
Coming
And you
from
will owe her
something.
a lot
Coming
of
from a
money.
regular price of how much? Like, you used to buy mangoes at what price?
I mean,
30 pesos.
I mean,
100 for marami na, isang kilo
100,
na yun.
isang kilo na yun. But now it's like a kilo is a piece.
Wow.
Because if they're fat, they're a kilo.
if you go to
almost a kilo
Zambales
na.
and you're in the roadside, it's not super cheap either considering they didn't really travel far. And then pagka yung ripe na yun, malapit na mabulok, yun medyo mas magiging mura siya, di ba?
Yeah.
Nasa mga 100. Pero ito cherries. So, cherries I would consider as a luxury fruit.
And they are imported. So
They
they're
are imported
expensive.
and they're
So
a luxury.
expensive.
You know how much for 2.5 kilos of this?
How much?
Like
Like
high
3,000.
2,000, almost
Whoa!
3,000
For
pesos.
3,000.
For 2.5 kilos.
Well, that's how much I got it for. 2 kilos for 3,000.
I know, but-
They're imported. Okay, fine. They're
Yeah.
special occasion fruits.
Yes.
But mangoes
And oranges?
They,
Baka
they
naman
shouldn't
tumaas lang yung
cost that
presyo
much.
kasi Chinese New
No.
Year.
No. I buy mangoes on a regular
Mahal
basis.
talaga.
Okay.
Mahal talaga.
Mahal
Wag na
talaga.
lang kasi kayo dyan. Ito
So-
300 lang, 4 na box.
Yun
na.
nga, but we need to have a balanced diet.
But we cannot
deserve to
eat
have.
hopya all the time.
We
right?
deserve
The
to
point
have.
is, if you want to eat healthy, it's costing you a lot more now. If you want to buy from the grocery, if you're an average middle class family trying to eat healthy, it's going to cost a lot more. Versus, okay, you're at the grocery and you're buying, what do you end up buying? Instant noodles, packet foods,
And,
stuff that's
canned
bad
goods.
for you. Canned goods,
Bi-
exactly.
biscuits,
so this is
cookies.
why. It's a health emergency and a food security emergency.
If you have
That's
4
correct.
children, you have to spend almost 500 pesos just
Or
to give
pero
each
year
of
one.
them one.
Just to put it in the proper place, the food security emergency refers to just
Rice.
bigas.
Rice,
Just,
yes.
to
Yes.
just
Yes.
rice, not other products.
Correct.
Yes.
But it's all
To release
related.
NFA
It's all
into the
related,
market.
right?
It's all
But
related.
correct. Once they declare that, it will only apply to rice, so they could start clear out the aging stock. Is what they call
But the
it.
complaint here with rice is that the prices have gone down already around the world. It should,
Except
it's
here.
not reflecting
and the
here.
tariffs, and it's
Yeah.
not reflecting in the actual prices of rice.
Well, okay, last week, I remember DA Secretary Tiu Laurel had a press con and he said about the status of the food emergency because it has to come from the NPCC, the Price Coordinating Council.
The
He
recommendation.
said they're waiting, they're waiting for signatories.
Yes.
And
which is
he was
true.
expecting
it's a
it to
bureaucratic
come,
thing.
Right, and he was expecting it to come by last Friday. It's already Tuesday. And tomorrow is Chinese New
It's
Year.
going to be another 2 days for the DTI to review, though. So
And as we know, we
potentially
have,
this week, potentially next week.
300,000 sacks of
Yeah.
aging rice that they need to sell to be able to
buy from
get
farmers.
our warehouses ready for harvest season.
Correct.
Upcoming harvest season.
Well, certainly quite a bit of an emergency, not just with rice, but also other basic goods. Moving on now, we've got the Maharlika Investment Corporation, which says it's open to the possibility of acquiring the stake of the State Grid Corporation of China, according to MIC President and CEO Rafael Consing.
We have not spoken basically to the Chinese. We only saw these opportunities SGP level. Okay, we're not having any discussions with the Chinese, with China State Grid of China rather, at this point in time. So no conversations are occurring with them.
Pero is MIC interested in case na mag-acquire ng shares dun sa SGCC po?
If it becomes available, I think so, yes.
This comes a day after officials signed Maharlika's first investment, which is to buy out a 20% stake in Synergy Grid and Development Philippines, which in turn holds 40.2% of the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines. The other 40% is held by the State Grid Corporation of China, whose officials have been under fire for not attending congressional panel hearings. Also, at the same press briefing, Consing said Maharlika won't offer relief for the recapitalization of Land Bank and Development Bank of the Philippines, or DBP. The two banks, if you recall, infused 50 billion and 25 billion pesos respectively to the Sovereign Wealth Fund in seed money despite public criticism. Consing also pushed back against the question of whether or why it took Maharlika Fund a while to lock in its first investment, or roughly a year and a half after it was put up.
Bit of time in terms of looking for and executing these investments. So I would not look at this as delayed, but rather it just takes really that much time to undertake investments.
Moving on now to the topic of energy security, or actually still on energy security, business tycoons Manny V. Pangilinan, Ramon Ang, and Sabin Aboitiz have finalized a landmark deal to operate an liquefied natural gas or LNG facility. This LNG agreement, worth $3.3 billion, was approved by the Philippine Competition Commission as early as last year. It brings together Pangilinan's Meralco Power Gen, or MGen, and Aboitiz's Therma Nat Gas Power, and the two will invest in a 67% stake in Ramon Ang's San Miguel power units. The deal is expected to increase the country's power supply with over 2,500 megawatts of generation capacity once fully operational. The three tycoons hailed this as a big step towards energy security, ensuring reliable and cost-efficient power for the population.
Landmark deal is right. I mean, this is the latest in the team up between
Ramon Ang and
MVP and the RSA, right? So everyone's excited whenever these two get together because they have the will to see projects through. But I have to point out that there is a big debate around LNG as a transition fuel. Transition fuel meaning we're transitioning from dirty energy, so-called dirty energy, fossil fuel energy, to renewable energy, right? So on the one hand, experts have said this is a great transition fuel because it's cleaner than coal or crude oil. And remember, Malampaya is expected to deplete by 2027.
But also remember, it was expected to deplete by 2024 as well, before 2027.
But still, what if it's true, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so 2027, yeah,
That's
correct.
true. No, I agree with you.
We're 2025 already.
And this
we're
is again
seriously at crunch time here. If it does deplete, because it does supply most of the electricity for Luzon, if it does deplete, then we're in serious trouble if we are unable to supply electricity to the biggest cities in the country.
And I remember back in the day when 2024 was still in the distant horizon, they were hoping, and we were all hoping, that we could explore the Recto Bank finally.
Reed Bank, that's right. Yeah, Reed Recto
The
Bank.
pursuit for other sources of energy is there. Actually, in Tanay, they are building windmills, more windmills, because wind is a resource, a big resource over in the east. But the question that I think is perfect for this discussion is on the headlines of Philippine Star. Will Maharlika Fund's grid investment lower your electricity bills? We had two pieces of news a while ago. One was on the Maharlika investment about the National Grid Corporation, and this one on the private sector. But at the end of the day, it is a discussion on whether, on how the consumers will benefit and feel the impact.
Correct. All of
these deals,
that
right?
we're talking about.
So it's
has
one
that
thing
bottom
to
line.
have more energy sources, and another thing to actually reduce the burden on your consumers. Okay, ang dami mga electricity, pero bakit hindi nababawasan yung electric bill natin? Why does it remain the same? Does it cost more?
I think on
All
the
of those
whole,
questions.
medyo mahirap sagutin yan eh. On the NGCP's part, it was privatized, right? So the private proponents did pour in a lot of money to upgrade our transmission equipment, our infrastructure. The question is, papayagan ba silang ipasa on yun sa consumer? Dapat hindi kasi may regulator. So the regulator controls how much money can be passed on to the consumers. Technically, the same way it works with energy.
Sinagot ni Energy Secretary Rafael Lotilla yung question na yun. At sabi niya, we cannot give you any exact date and exact amount of reduction. He did point out, however, that better transmission infrastructure could indirectly lower costs. Particularly citing an example in the Mindanao-Visayas interconnection. Alam natin the grid there was improved.
The grids of Visayas and Mindanao have been connected already. So Visayas can benefit from the excess power in Mindanao.
Reduce spot market prices. So, hindi pa sila sigurado.
That's to do with Maharlika.
That has to do with Maharlika.
Right, because effectively what they bought was just control, greater control of the state grid operator, right? And yes, they're not generators, they're distributors. And yeah, if you fix that part of the process, of course it'll eventually translate to lower prices. The LNG deal answers that question. It will and it should, over time, lower electricity costs for consumers because it adds more power supply to the grid, basically. So now you're generating So at the moment, we're getting about 60% from coal and crude. Natural gas is only 4% of the energy mix, so very, very little. Now, if you up that, obviously that's going to translate to more supply nga, and it should in turn, in time, lower the prices.
Here's
On the
thing.
other side, the con is that LNG may not be necessarily as clean
It's
as
not the
they say,
cleanest.
right? So the problem with LNG is that yes, it produces less carbon dioxide, but it produces far more methane, which is a poisonous gas, which then, experts also say contributes more is more potent and contributes more to environmental damage in the long run.
They
so
do
that part
sometimes
of the
capture
equation,
methane though, but it's more like methane from poop. From biological
no,
poop
we're
and
talking about
trash.
industrial quantities
methane,
of
so
methane,
that cannot
right?
be converted.
And then the other side of it is so there's the environmental and health side, the health issues. For instance, in places like Batangas, which hosts 5 LNG power plants, there have been reports from environmental groups that the residents there are, suffering from this or that respiratory illness. Of course, as far as I know, it hasn't been proven that it's directly related to that, but that's the concern of the environmental groups, right? Okay, so on the one hand, you're trying to commit to 20%, or the Philippines' commitment to climate change is
Increasing the
30%
share.
of renewable energy mix to the mix by 2030 and 50% by 2040. So on the one hand, you're trying to work towards that. And on the other hand, you've got energy security as this big looming issue.
That's what I was going to say because
So parang there's
last
no
summer,
easy answers here.
That's right. Last summer we were having red alerts nonstop, right?
correct.
And we were talking about where along with the green shift. A lot of people, like Gretchen pointed out, putting up windmills, putting up this and that.
Solar-
But we
solar
need base
farms.
load, solar
That's not-
farms, and
yeah,
those
they're
are
not
not
base
good
load yet.
for base load. And we need base load to really ensure that why are we even talking about the grid when there's no power to go around, right? We have to start from the basic, and so it's really a multi-pronged
Some
problem.
are saying that solar power is the way, like house-to-house solar system for every house. But
Well, that
that's
could be
kind of
done.
far off.
That's far
It's
off,
still
and
far
Materials
off.
need to get very inexpensive and much.
and then you have
more
problems at
cost-effective.
night if you don't have storage. It's direct to use. And then
Actually,
once the sun
battery-
goes
battery
away,
yung mahal
yung
dun eh.
battery yung mahal. Yun yung problema.
But she makes a good point, which is that base load is still the key issue. That's base load is the one that powers economies forward, right? Yes, house to house, you could build solar panels for every single house, and we'd all be happy because then that means we pay less in electricity. But it does not work for the general economy, for industry, for heavy manufacturing, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so the point being that these are. It depends. So in economics, the principle is always there's always a trade-off. So yes, on the one hand, let's say 5 years, 10 years down the road, electricity should get cheaper. But on the other hand, what is the impact on the climate and the environment and on health?
The concerns over in Tanay
It's-
are if they would ruin the protected areas there.
Yes, that's also
if
true.
they build windmill
Impact on
farms.
biodiversity. Yeah, yeah. So
The same goes with solar farms. Like they takes up
I
a
guess
lot
just
of
to
land.
round it up, we have 3 tycoons putting their heads together on this one. And usually, like sometimes I like to joke around and say the private sector does come in, swoop in to save us once in a while. So we'll see. where
that's
this
true
deal
because
goes.
these same 3 tycoons are also well aware of the climate issue, and each of these they're in various businesses are invested in climate financing, climate change projects, right? Aboitiz, the Panglinan Group, and also the San Miguel Group. All of them, right? Today I was just sharing a picture
Yeah.
of you guys. Of,
The dredging over at
of
the
the
Pasig River.
dredging. They've dredged how much have they dredged in
Of
Pasig?
tons of, like,
tons
silt
and tons of
and
silt and
sand.
dirt and garbage from the Pasig River.
They are
these
trying
are
to
not
fix the NAIA problems.
Yes.
On the other hand, the MVP group has already started investing into agriculture,
Yes.
food security, also into the largest solar farm, the Terra Solar Farm in Nueva Ecija. They've invested into greenhouses, and bukod pa yun doon sa dairy farm.
Yeah.
And as we know, of course, the Aboitizes and also San Miguel, massive food holdings
Yeah.
as well.
So we do hope to find a perfect balance to that. Here's
to hoping.
here's to raising that challenge to our leaders in the private sector. Meanwhile, up next, Vice President Sara Duterte scores a legal victory in the string of charges filed against her by the PNP. More details on that when the big story returns. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
The slew of criminal complaints filed by the National Police against Vice President Sara Duterte and her security group head have been dismissed by the Quezon City Prosecutor's Office. The case stemmed from a scuffle that ensued during the transfer of Duterte's Chief of Staff, Attorney Zulaika Lopez, from the Batasan complex to Veterans Hospital in November. The resolution, which was dated January 17 but only made public today, dismissed the direct assault, disobedience to authority, and grave coercion complaints filed by the PNP for lack of evidence. The resolution also stated that witnesses presented failed to corroborate the complainant's claims. It also highlighted that contrary to the complaints, Duterte and La Chica did not attack, employ material force, seriously intimidate or resist authorities as seen in various video footage of the transfer. The PNP has yet to issue a reaction to the dismissal of the case.
Much ado in the upper chamber once again over a Chinese citizen. The Senate today passed a bill granting Filipino citizenship to a Chinese national whom Senator Risa Ontiveros has accused of having links to Pogos. 19 voted in favor of declaring Li Duanwang a naturalized citizen. No one abstained and only Hontiveros voted against. According to her, while Li doesn't have a criminal record and has not been convicted of anything, he has a lot of red flags, including being a casino junket operator, as well as his connection to Duan Renwu, a big boss in the Pogo raided back in Pampanga.
Ba tayo natuto sa panloloko ni Guo Huaping alias Alice Guo o kay Yang Jianxin alias Tony Yang? Sa buong paniniwala ko, ang nararapat gawin ng gobyerno ay imbestigahan si Li Duanwang, hindi magpasa ng batas para ituring siyang isa sa atin.
Senatorial candidate Ping Lacson believes there is a need to reform the law that covers penalties for espionage. This is in light of the arrest of Teng Yan-Tsing, a Chinese national accused of being a spy. The former senator said the NBI and PNP should have foolproof evidence that will directly link Teng to spying activities. In an interview with our sister show Storycon, Lacson also reminded that under Commonwealth Act 616, the penalty for the crime is only 6 months and 1 day to 6 years.
Commonwealth Act 616, yun yung Espionage Act na umiiral ngayon sa ating bansa. Yung batas na yun, hindi lamang laban sa, napupumit laban sa bansang Pilipinas, kundi pati sa bansang Amerika. At luma na. So hindi covered yung mga modern technical equipment. Baka hindi mahasaklaw ng batas kung walang ibang ebidensya na makapagpatunay na espiya nga itong sinasabing nahuli. Kasi kung gamit niya ibang equipment at hindi nakapasok doon sa Commonwealth Act 616, baka magkaroon ng technicality pagdating sa trial. At yun na talaga sa times, sa day and age of modern technology. Yung mga ginagamit ngayon, hindi pa gamit noong 1941. So kailangan talaga. At saka taasan yung penalty. Sa ibang bansa nga, talagang napaka-great na offense yan, yung espionage. Pwede kang siguro, ang may sasuggest ako personally, para talagang mapangalagaan natin yung ating national security, dapat yan, reclusion perpetua.
Number of issues to hash out. So at this point, let me bring in our resident geopolitical and also local politics analyst, Richard Haydarian. Richard, oh, there, we've got you on Zoom. Thanks for joining us at such short notice tonight.
Yeah, literally 1 minute before.
Sorry.
We appreciate it.
So,
nagugas pa ako ng mukha ng contest.
So wala kang date? There was nobody, okay, you didn't have to break a date or anything?
Mag-gym na sana.
30-minute
Date with the dumbbells.
I see. You could have taken our call at the gym, right? That would have been interesting whilst lifting weights, diba?
I was thinking walking on the treadmill.
Ko sa gym, but let's go with it.
Okay, so I heard that you have insights on a lot of things, yes, but also, first of all, with the NGCP deal. I'm guessing we're taking off from the latest news on that, being that Maharlika has invested 20% into Synergy, which holds 40% stake in NGCP. So in a way, you could see it as taking back partial control of the national grid operator, right? So generally good on the surface of it. What do you think?
Well, maybe this is just a baby step towards cleaning up our house because we should not be against investment by any country as so long as it doesn't directly threaten our national security and as long as it's quality investments, right? This is a position that any mature country should take. I mean, this was a position that former Prime Minister Mahathir also mentioned to me when he was visiting the Philippines back in 2019. So we have to be very clear. It's not like we're singling out countries and saying they shouldn't invest in our country at all. But critical infrastructure is something else, right? And in fact, there's a term called corrosive investment, meaning the kind of investments that undermine your national security or foundations of your economic security. And the problem in the Philippines is that we have a very profound and problematic relationship with China when it comes to the South China Sea disputes. And yet, over the years, from one admin to the other, this is not just the Duterte administration, it goes all the way back, we have seen more and more investments by Chinese companies in critical infrastructure in the Philippines, or in the case of the NGCP, it's not even a private company, although China's system, there's no such thing as purely private. If the Communist Party says you have to do X, Y, and Z, you have to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, it's a country where top billionaires are forced into exile, right? So let's be clear. This is not a normal capitalist country. The Communist Party has a say on how big companies are run, especially if you're talking about state-owned or state-backed company, especially the Chinese company that is involved in NGCP. Now, the issue of national security when it comes to NGCP and critical infrastructure was raised back in the day, nung time na nagpapakonsulta pa sa akin si late Senator Miriam Defensor. This was raised by Senator Rizon Tiveros a few years ago. This was raised by Senator Rafi Tulfo a few years ago. So we're actually behind the curve. And the issue here is not ownership per se. I think the fundamental concern here is that who are the engineers from a technical standpoint who are running NGCP? So even if you dilute the ownership and make sure that Philippine share or the Filipinos who have a share in NGCP as much as possible are loyal to the Philippines, and you make sure that they don't have questionable intentions. The fact of the matter is that the problem here is more technical and engineering wise. From what I understand, when it comes to the technical aspect, it looks like it's 100% run by China. So what I want to see is how is this Maharlika Fund investment really going to help in terms of technical and in terms of national security needs that we have when it comes to this. And more than that, we also allowed back in the day during the Duterte administration for China Telecom backed company in the Philippines to also have presence in the country. Huawei was pushing for nationwide presence and developing our public digital infrastructure. That is on the back burner right now, but nevertheless, during Duterte's time, for instance, you allowed the China Telecom backed company to put satellite or communication systems within the AFP. So let's just be honest, we have been sloppy across different administration. It's unfair to just single out the Duterte administration. And I think it's time to do some cleanup. And cleaning up is not just buying shares in these companies, but also looking from a technical aspect, whether there's no backdoor to sabotaging or undermining our national security. Now, this is not because China per se is nefarious. It's because, well, let's be honest, there could be war over Taiwan. There could be war in the West Philippines anytime soon. So what is the reason for China, for instance, not to leverage its tentacles of investments in our critical infrastructure? As any rational superpower, they will most likely do that. So we have to be careful and do more decisive steps. Nevertheless, this is a baby step in the right direction.
Okay, Richard, can I play devil's advocate here and look at it from another point of view? Because if you're a foreign investor and you saw that someone still has 7 years to go and their 25 years congressional granted franchise, yes, into our critical infrastructure, but dumaan naman to sa butas ng karayom and pinayagan siya. Tapos babawiin with 7 years to go.
Well, I'm not sure how gaano ka laki or liit yung butas ng karayom.
Ayun na yun. Pero the point is that it passed through the committees, it went through, the committee, the Legislative Franchises Committee, and that was granted. And it has been 18 years. And as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't really heard. I heard a lot of threats and paranoia, about gagamitin to para mag-spy sa atin. But there's been no actually concrete evidence or loophole that has been presented to the public, as far as I know, that shows that this is how you can do it, with the grid.
papatayan
and
daw
first of
tayo
all,
ng kuryente. So far, hasn't happened, right?
right.
I mean, I
Well, first
understand
of
that
all,
we were not gonna wait for that to
Sean,
happen.
you're
Yeah.
exactly. You're not gonna wait for the disaster to happen
I
before you
understand.
figure things out. By that time, it's too late. And in fact, there is a deterrence effect, right? There's a chilling effect. If you know that your critical infrastructure might chokehold ang isang adversary, it makes you always think twice in picking a fight with that adversary, right? Or at least standing up to that adversary. We're in no position to pick a fight with another country, especially as big as China. But if you know that there's another country that has a chokehold on your critical infrastructure, that always has a kind of a chilling effect, right? So that in itself is already a national security threat. And obviously, as you devil's advocated your own devil's advocate, right? You're not gonna wait for disaster to happen. I mean, that's not what national security does. That's why you put paranoid people like me to do the national security analysis, or worse people than me inside the government, right? Now, the other thing is, of course, you're absolutely right. Hindi pwede bara-bara lang yan, right? You cannot just go there, okay, we're shutting this down, we're taking over. Yeah, if you go like that, then you're gonna be like Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, right? We're not a banana republic. So just like how Senator Lacson a while ago said something along the lines that kailangan natin i-update yung ating batas to deal with treason in peacetime, for instance, something we haven't done. I think we also have to create laws and procedures that allow us to clean up our critical infrastructure in ways that does not undermine the rule of law. So there has to be a rule of law around this cleanup process. It cannot just be bara-bara lang, you just come in and take out another country. And in that way, we can assure investors that it's not about the investment environment, but it's about national security. And speaking of national security and investment, there's always a tension between the two, but whether it's in Australia blocking Huawei from investing there, whether it's the United States blocking investments from China and other countries there, the Europeans, among other things, it's not like it's the first time that we see a major democracy or a country on national security grounds making certain move on certain national security consideration. And of course, times have changed. When this NGCP thing happened was during the Arroyo administration, when we had fantastic relationship with China compared to today, and China had fantastic relationship with the United States. But so much has changed that other countries are radically reorienting their approach to investments in critical infrastructure. Actually, Japan also is another country that is looking at investments in their critical infrastructure, particularly from China. So we have to cope with the zeitgeist, but you're absolutely right. You have to also create a process to make sure there's a rule of law when we try to clean up the system. Hindi pwede bara-bara lang. Obviously, there are also critics who are gonna say, baka nagpapakit lang itong Maharlika Fund neto. Because to be honest, ngayon lang parang may side-side itong Maharlika Fund neto. Parang, ang tagal na itong Maharlika Fund. Ngayon ko na nakita, may ginawa pala siya. Alright? Aside from binibigyan ng sweldo, yung mga tao sa loob. So, some probably people will say, baka pakit lang ito ng Maharlika Fund. I won't be that cynical. But yes, I think Maharlika Fund could be a strategic investment fund that actually makes sure we de-risk. So actually, there's a term for that called de-risk. So de-risk means that you choose a few critical infrastructure or technologies, and then you put high fences on that, meaning high levels of protection. So it's not a blanket kicking out of investors from a country or investors in a particular sector, but a very targeted and surgical one. The Dutch, for instance, I was in Netherlands a few months ago. Of course, I was there to Marites on ICC, among other things. But there was a Chinese student there who helped me out with my metro from Hague to Amsterdam. And he told me that Chinese students, for instance, are now not allowed to enter certain laboratories in certain universities in Netherlands that have to do something with the developments of high-end semiconductors. Yung lithography, for instance. So what we're seeing all around the world right now is that ganong ka-level ang de-risking nangyari. Hindi lang sa critical infrastructure, even in critical sciences, research and development, in certain universities, people of Chinese citizens are not allowed to enter because they're national security grounds. So I'm not saying it's a great thing, but unfortunately, we are in the world where we are, which is a Cold War between China and US, and we're a US treaty ally that also happens to have a territorial disputes with China. So yes, happy Chinese New Year. We love China. We love to have a great relationship with China. But we have to do it with eyes wide open and at the same time cleaning
Richard,
up our vulnerabilities.
well, I think that's a much more mellow term, de-risking, compared to paranoia over what's been happening, or if there are Chinese spies. Speaking of which, how would you describe the recent news of the PNP arresting an alleged spy spying on critical infrastructure. We had Teresita Angsi last night here on The Big Story, and she was saying that the NBI should have done its work to check the background of Teng Yen-sing, that he works for an international company that has set up their operations also in Taiwan, in other U.S. allied countries, and also taking a look at the equipment, the gadgets of Teng Yen-sing. I mean, what have you heard about all those operations? Do you think we're too paranoid here, or is it just right that we are de-risking from that possibility that we have those sleeper, anong tawag sa kanila? Sleeper agents?
Sleeper cells. Medyo iba yan.
Daw.
I think,
Daw.
honeypot yan.
By the way,
Alleged.
Alleged sleeper cells. Alleged. We're not saying there are sleeper cells. Alleged sleeper cells.
Right. Yeah, of course. I absolutely agree, Gretchen. I mean, what you need to make sure is walang overcorrection here. Because if you are paranoid, you do overcorrection. And when you do overcorrection, that's where things go wrong. I think with civil society, Chinoy leaders, friends, a lot of them are worried that this overcorrection, unfortunately, may go with xenophobic sentiments that could also target our fellow Filipino citizens, right? So absolutely, we have to guard against overcorrection. In fact, the term "the risk" was essentially coined by the Biden administration a few years ago because they also realized you cannot decouple from China. China is just so important, such a fantastically technological advanced country. I was just installing yung latest Chinese AI wonder.
DeepSeek.
It's incredible. I mean, it's incredible. Sorry to ChatGPT and other friends. And they made it on the chip. Now, assuming their numbers are true, but you know, this China is a country we cannot deny. Look at their cars, their EV cars. Look at what they're offering us. In the next coming years, China will be a technological superpower, not only a military superpower, not only a big economy. So, of course, we want to have best relationship with them. So having xenophobic paranoia is against our democratic principles, but also against our national interest. So that's why it's very important. There is due diligence. That, you know, you don't have an AFP coming in and saying, okay, we'll do our research. You have to make sure there's a background research information. You're dotting all the T's and I's. So yun ang kailangan natin gawin. Having said that, we have been warning. Back in 2018-19, I was already writing about, and by the way, that was also inspired by interventions by then Senator Lacson, among others. Now, there are suspicions that there is some infiltration of some of the pogos, that the location of pogos next to Camp Crame, Camp Aguinaldo, all of our important military bases should naturally raise our eyebrows. But unfortunately, under the Duterte administration, kasi walang ginawa eh. Because there was an interest. I don't know, self-interest or an interest involved there. So siguro, Gerson, the problem kasi here is dahil we're cleaning up also for 6 years of neglect, if not recklessness, during the Duterte administration, when they allowed hundreds of thousands of folks to come in for pogos and tourism, and there was not proper check and proper follow-through. Ang worry ko naman is mag-overshoot naman tayo at mag-overcorrect tayo. Kaya nga, exactly as Sean was saying, if we're going to deal with any threats like that, we have to do it in a systematic way, in a procedural way that goes in tandem with our constitution. So sana yung mga legislators natin, hindi lang busy doon sa, hindi na ako mag-blind item.
Blind item mo na!
Blind item, hindi blank item. Blind item. Hindi lang
Blank
busy
item.
sa election, budget.
Name names.
Dito mga importanteng bagay na to, di ba?
Matatroll na naman si Richard.
Oh no! Oh, I thought you were gonna...
I thought you were gonna drop a bomb.
Names.
No.
I'm like blind item.
Although, okay, I'll drop a bomb maybe, but I was told by some people, again, baka mama-burn na naman tayo na there's still a chance daw na may super 11th hour, like how you invite me like 1 minute before the show.
Okay.
Baka daw, the 1/3 will be produced in the Congress. But I think there's no illusion that you will get the vote in the Senate under this Congress. So the idea is that you get it up to Senate, start the trial of impeachment, and then hope you get a better Congress after the election. So it looks like yung operating principle of people who want impeachment to happen. In fact, there's going to be a prayer rally in the next 48 hours or so, right? In that regard. So that's what I'm hearing from people inside the Congress. But this is the Philippines. Busy talaga mga politiko natin kasi andyan na yung elections. I hope they also pay attention to national security. Ang tagal na natin sabi,
Wait.
itong mga problema na ito.
And that's gonna work, you think? This new strategy, 1/3 in Congress?
Well, you have to get the ball rolling, right? Because ang sense ko dito is, if the Congress doesn't push this up to the Senate, wala na, tapos na impeachment. Remember, di ba, meron pang if hindi ito usad, you cannot file another impeachment against her until next year pa. By that time, who cares? It's 2028 elections. And if Sara is still #1 in the surveys, which is not going to be impossible or close to Rafi Tulfo at #1, you're not going to get anyone on your side. So this is it. It's all or nothing. And more or less, we have 48 hours or so to see whether there'll be a last-minute push to push it up to the Senate. At least if you look at the statements by Senator Chiso Escudero, it looks like they're looking at creating the infrastructure. Di ba may gag order siya? Now, senators should not make any comment on this, which obviously Senator Robin Hood Padilla seems to have different ideas about that. But it looks like the Senate is preparing for that possibility that they may also have to assume senator judge, meaning a trial procedures. And as you may know, the procedure itself will also depend on the discretion of the Senate leadership and the senators.
Correct.
Is it going to be confidentiality? How is it going to be done? Yung timing, dahil may tumatakbo sa re-election. So it really all goes down to the wire right now in terms of whether the Congress is gonna roll the dice. Because if they don't roll the dice right now, it's over. It's now or never. And it's not only now or never, as Sara Duterte said, wala nang balikan to. Lines have been crossed, right? So if they're gonna come back, some people are gonna, pay a price.
Ayun nga kasi Richard, some people are saying no, na nabigyan talaga to ng napakaraming attention, napakaraming airtime kumbaga sa mga podcast dito sa traditional media, both you and I, all of us, no? Pero they're saying there's no such thing as bad publicity and we could be helping the 2028 bid of Sara Duterte, which she already said that she's thinking about 2028 now. It's back on the table.
Well, at least she's more transparent now because kasi nagpapakipot siya, di ba? I'm not sure, baka oo, baka hindi. But let's not forget, one thing has changed over the past year or so. Sara Duterte's have collapsed. I mean, look at the SWS net satisfaction rating. She's only at +21. So even if she's gonna run, which is not impossible, even if she may still remain as a front runner, she's no longer the outsized favorite, right? And she's no longer as invincible as she seemed to be. In fact, my suspicion is if ever hindi aakyat ito sa Senate, meaning magfo-fold ang Congress leadership at the 11th hour, it is because some people think they can adopt what I call a containment strategy. The idea there is, sasampahan natin ng maraming kaso itong mga Dutertes na to until mag-hemorrhage to ng mga popularity, until maging politically irrelevant sila. So even if we don't impeach them or put them in jail, we're gonna so politically marginalize them that they go back essentially to political stone age, which is before 2016 when they were not a national force. But that kind of mindset, I think, is very risky because what if it doesn't work? And as Sean correctly said, yeah, I mean, we saw it with Trump, right? If you try to hit populists and it doesn't work, they're going to juice it out and come back with vengeance. I don't know if people are watching what's happening around the world. So that containment strategy, in my opinion, is very risky, if not foolish.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to go for the king, you best make sure that you cut his head
I
off,
wanted
right?
to go
That's how the
Waldo
saying
Emerson,
goes.
but I didn't want to go brutal samurai. So.
We have run out of time. I'm so sorry, but next time we'll bring you on, and this time we won't call you at the very, very last minute, literally. Thank you so much for your
Last 2 minutes.
last 2 minutes.
Our white knight.
But thank
At the
you
minute.
for saving us. Thanks for your insights to Richard Haydarian, our resident geopolitical analyst.
As always, ladies.
All right, another quick break for now. Right after that, we take a listen to what Senator Rafi Tulfo told his son, Congressman Ralph Tulfo, after the younger Tulfo was caught using the EDSA busway. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
The Commission on Elections and TikTok have teamed up to try to combat fake news this midterm election. Today, they signed an MOU that aims to promote transparency and integrity in the digital space as the election draws near. TikTok said they will enforce stricter content monitoring and pointed to the fact they have more than 21 partner fact-checkers globally. The Chinese firm also encouraged users to report creators that violate its community guidelines. It may be recalled that last October, TikTok banned political ads from airing on their platform so that political content cannot be monetized. Kamala clarified, however, that candidates may use the platform but must follow community guidelines. Alongside this, TikTok launched its election campaign, #ThinkTwice. They also released an in-app feature called Philippine Election Center that shows user-verified election content.
Oh, this one is all over social media. Another day, another EDSA busway controversy, this time involving the son of Senator Raffy Tulfo. The senator said he has reprimanded his son, Congressman Ralph Tulfo, after being caught using the exclusive lane. Nevertheless, the elder Tulfo noted that his son has since owned up to the mistake and that it was Ralph's driver that insisted on using the busway anyway. Congressman Tulfo has already apologized, but his father wants him to do it publicly.
Sorry sa akin at sabi ko mag-apologize ko sa lahat. As long as hindi siya tumakas, hindi siya gumamit ng plakang 8, which karapatan niya gumamit pero hindi siya gumamit. Just shows na hindi siya abusado.
Just imagining if Congressman Ralph would guest on his father's show, right? Sabunin kaya siya nung normal. Oh, we'll wait for that. In the meantime, well, today is a special day. As you know, we're wearing different colors because it is the eve of Chinese New Year and festivities are in full swing. Let's head over to Manila, the heart of the celebration. And joining us from Manila is Brian Basa, who is at the historic Jones Bridge, where countdown is happening in a few hours. Update us with the latest, Brian. Brian?
You can see that iconic, that pagoda, that archway is at the foot of Jones Bridge. Just about to...
Hi, Gretchen and ladies. Good evening sa inyo. We're some 3 hours away from the Lunar New Year, and the oldest Chinatown in the world is busy preparing to ring in the Year of the Snake. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Seems to be, there seems to be a delay.
But go ahead, please.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me, ladies. Yeah? Okay, looks like we lost. Okay, that's... Okay, there we go. Yes, okay. We're some 3 hours away, tulga na nasabi ko. Magcha-Chinese New Year na rito sa Binondo, one of the oldest Chinatowns in the world. Behind me, the last of the vehicles have passed by Jones Bridge dahil at 9 p.m. magsasara na ito, pati yung ibang mga kalsada sa loob ng Binondo because dito na mangyayari yung midnight festivities natin for the Chinese New Year as we ring in the Year of the Snake. Sa loob ng Binondo, mas maraming tao sa mga kalsada. They're just essentially, having fun. Wala munang trabaho. Well, at least for those who are coming here, the visitors and the tourists, kanya-kanya silang labas ng cellphone, kanya-kanya silang labas ng camera to take a snapshot, to immortalize, would you say, the memories that they will make tonight because this is going to be a special Chinese New Year celebration here in Binondo. Ladies.
Exciting. Parang bigla akong na-foam. Gusto ko tuloy kumain ng hopya.
Thank you so much for that report. Brian Basa reporting live from the foot of Jones Bridge, where we can see from the background a lot of, it's very festive.
Yes.
Yung lanterns are all lit up.
It's so nice, the lighting.
Looks like a lot of people too.
Yeah, and I'm trying to recall. I know recently, pabongga yung celebration on Chinese New Year's Eve in downtown Manila, in Chinatown, which is the oldest in the world. But I'm kind of FOMO now. There's still time to head on over.
How do you guys celebrate Chinese New Year?
We have dinner at home. We actually celebrate. We're celebrating tonight. So the Eve.
It's always the Eve.
It's always
or sometimes,
the Eve.
well,
Sometimes,
depends.
I don't know, but in our family, it's the Eve.
Yeah, but it's always about getting the family together. And then,
Correct.
of course, there's the superstitious bits, right? Laying
Kakain ka
out
ng
12
malagkit,
fruits,
di ba?
right?
Oo.
Laying out 12 fruits.
Yes.
Not bigas with coins.
Coins.
That's usually housewarming.
Yeah.
But,
The ano, what? The
giving kids
Angpao?
angpao, right?
And
Right?
that puto, yung pag ganon. You know, that rice cake?
Yeah.
The beige one.
Malagkit
Yeah.
for the family together.
Hotke. Hotke. It's called hotke.
Jinx.
Our
Saan ba
ancestors
tayo?
gonna be
Yeah,
so
that's
mad
right.
at us right now.
Oh, and then of course, joss sticks, or in Chinese we call it hapopi.
Hahapopi.
Yung ba yung
That's right.
English?
A lot of people go to the temples. So on the first day of Chinese New Year, a lot of people go to the temples in Tondo, in
Well, it is-
Binondo.
Tsaka alay food.
Yeah, it is good luck to be with family at the start
For
of
sure.
every year, right? So it speaks of what's going to happen the rest of the year. We hope for fortune, good fortune,
And
for
everyone.
prosperity
and
and
prosperity.
Okay.
For the Philippines.
Get your round fruits or round hopias.
Round food.
And it's all cheers to the new year that is.
Gusto nyo?
A happy Chinese New Year.
Okay.
To everybody who's watching the big story.
Kyunghi, Watsai.
Konghi
May
Patsoy,
crossover. You're not supposed to cross over.
Ano pa ba?
We're breaking the
Kongsi
fourth
Patsay.
wall. Yan. I'm sharing Maya.
O, di ba? Meron kaming pa-hopya ngayon.
Okay,
Drink.
Kyunghi, Watsai,
Sawi,
Kongsi
oo,
Fatsai,
diba?
Sinyan Kwaila. Happy New Year. Happy Year of the Snake.
wala mang tikoy, malagkit naman yung hopya. Kaya
Okay, we
pwede.
have to end na. Yung kulit niyo naman eh.
Di ba, paliwanag pa namin kung paano ginagawa.
It's like they're still eating. They're
Let's
trying to
insert
eat
the big story
on
tonight.
camera. We have to hand over.
Teka, inflation na 100 na to isa. Oh, mahal yan. Oh, we are One News all sides all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night. But stay tuned
Because coming up next is Play by Play with Andre Felix and Pauline Versosa.
Thank you sa kopya.
You're welcome.
This is for you. Sa'yo to.
Frosty,
Kita mo?
invisible wall.
Kinuha ko for you. Kopya love me too.
Hindi ba Valentine's Day? Guys, time to walk out na.
Goodness. That is cheesy.
But any plans for Chinese New Year? I know you all three, of course, have Chinese lineage.
I have a dinner with my family.
Reg?
I hope they
Starts
left
tomorrow
me
for
food.
me.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Reg,
Wala eh.
Si Ana?
Iniwan ako ng family ko. Nasa ibang bansa
saan sa ibang
sila.
bansa? Kanina we had this morning si Dimple sa gluto ng mochi. Mochi?
Mochi? Baka mochi?
Parang ganon.
Mochi
Hindi, parang
balls.
mochi daw. Mochi-chi. Oo nga, hindi nga.
Naging invento ka.
Yung malambot.
Dapat nagdala ka daw kasi.
Mochi balls yun.
Basta ganon yung may peanuts.
Mochi.
Oh,
Ay,
yeah.
hindi. Anong tawag doon?
Sesame balls.
Yung kinakain sa Chinese
Buchi.
restaurant.
Buchi.
Ayun,
Buchi.
ayun.
Buchi ang tawag doon.
balls.
Anyway,
Sarap
happy Chinese New Year to the ladies. Ganda ng color, no? Yeah, Gretchen in yellow, Regina
course,
in
yes.
green, tapos Sean in red.
Do not wear black.
This is navy blue.
Okay, pasado siya.
Thank you to the big story on the show tonight. We've got what may be that last straw before the Miami Heat trade away troubled star, controversial Jimmy Butler. Plus, can I get an amen up in here? Amen. Amen Thompson hits a game winner to lead the Rockets past the defending NBA champion, the Celtics.
And we've got the latest from the PVL All-Filipino Conference as the Creamline Cool Smashers stay perfect after 6 games.
I'm Andre Felix.
And I'm Pauline Versosa, sitting in for Cheska Liton Calao.
And here's tonight's play-by-play.
Gagawin ko